Hello everyone, this is Chara, and today I want to rank the abilities for Splatoon 2 in a tier list. Abilities are way more important than people think, especially quite a few of them, so I want to go over which ones you should use, which ones are situational, and which one are absolute garbage. So without further ado, let's just get into it. And first up, I'm going to talk about meta-defining. And meta-defining is a really important tier, because what I'm trying to say is that these two abilities, but they're so good that they change how the game is played. And the first one everyone already knows about. It's main power-up. Like, obviously, MPU is going to be on this tier list. MPU damage up fundamentally changes how you have to play against specific weapons because you take damage and you die. And so a lot of playstyles have to change, especially when fighting full main power-up teams. So I think it's really important for that. But even for many other weapons, it's still really important. Like Squiffer and E-Liter, that bit of extra range and a lot of extra paint matters so much for those weapons. So while it may be useless on stuff like Octobrush, for most weapons, it'll either change how you play against people, or it'll greatly enhance your weapon. So for that reason, I think it's meta-defining. Secondly, y'all knew this was coming to last-ditch effort. So for those who don't know, with last-ditch effort, it activates when points go below 50, not just at the last 30 seconds, and it'll slowly stack on until 30 or so. And Last Ditch gives 8 subs of Ink Recovery, Ink Saver Sub, and Ink Saver Main. Bombs are already the best subs in the game, bomb poking already very important, and it really helps with farming specials. So when you give an ability that allows you to do that 10 times better, then yeah, it's going to be pretty meta-defining. So part of the reason stuff like Zap, especially, is as good as it is because of this ability. Bomb spam is super nerfed if this doesn't exist. And that means supportive playstyles are super nerfed. It means poking with bombs is super nerfed. A ton of stuff changes. So Last Ditch Effort, also very meta-defining. So jumping around to very important, we're going to cover the utility subs. Now, I debated moving this between good or not because technically you only run one sub of these, but I'm going to put these up here. 0.1 QSJ allows you to get in and out of the match faster. It stacks very well, 2 sub stacks pretty well, and most importantly, quick super jump affects the time before you jump out, not your speed in the air. It is entirely saving frames before you leave the ground. So if you need to jump out to save your special, to reposition, to come back in, always consistently helpful. Sub of bomb defense helps stop a bunch of different combos. Bomb defense works against more than just bombs. It also works against specials and some other stuff. So it's very useful. It's more of a mini defense up that doesn't work against main weapons. So it's still really, really useful. And Ink Res is your tool against MPU weapons. It gives you a little bit more survivability. It helps with mobility when you touch a bit of enemy ink. And it keeps you from taking damage immediately. All of which, very important. I would say they're essential to your builds, but they do not define the meta like main power-up and Last Ditch Effort does. They're just really good. Next up is Swim Speed. Swim Speed Up is just an all-around good ability. Swimming around is one of the most important things in the game. Being able to move around, whether you're from spawn, in a fight, a weapon that requires spacing is always really important. Being able to swim fast will always be one of the most important mechanics in this game. And so, no surprise, it is still one of the most important things to run on your gear. You can run a little bit of it. You could run up to like 2, maybe even 3 mains depending on the weapon. It all works pretty well. It's just really useful. Next up is Stealth Jump, which is also pretty underrated. I don't think people realize how much it helps pretty much any weapon. Like even some backliners I've seen run this, but realistically I don't think that's good nowadays. But anything that isn't a backline, if they're not near your jump is pretty much uncampable. It's incredibly safe, and it's just one main ability. So it's really easy to put this in your build. It's an absolute necessity if you play a Slayer, or anything that goes in and dies a lot. You should be running Stealth Jump. Stealth Jump is mad underrated. It has always been good in this game, and just should not be overlooked. I don't think people talk about how useful this is enough. Object Shredder and good. Alright, so hear me out. Object Shredder on specific weapons is an absolute necessity. It's really useful for quite a bit of things. However, it's not useful on anywhere near as much of weapons as these are. These are useful on pretty much every single weapon. This has a lot of weapons where you don't want it. So it's still really good. It's great for breaking armor, especially with bombs. It's great for popping Rainmaker Shield, is really good in that mode. It's good against Baller and Booyah Bomb. But it's not a necessity for a lot of weapons. Like, if you run stuff that does less than 30 damage, you want Object Shredder. Bomb Rush weapons can be pretty good with Object Shredder, because it'll prevent 0.1 bomb defense from not breaking armor, stuff like that. But it's not a necessity for a lot of things, and that's why it's a tier lower. So it's still really good. It's just not a necessity for a lot of weapons. Charge Up, another really good ability. It's basically like Object Shredder. For specific weapons, it's really useful for getting your special faster if that is your playstyle. But it's not a super necessary thing. And Last Ditch Effort will help most weapons farm special more than Charge Up will. Charge Up is still really nice. It just depends on what you play. Like, if you play something like a V-Jet or Foil Flingza, where it's your job to output as much specials as possible, you want Charge Up. You want, like, a random main to appear of it. But a lot of weapons, like, even stuff like N-Zap can get by without running it because Last Ditch Effort will help that much. So it's great, but it's another thing where it does kind of depend on the weapons you want to play. Alright, next up is Situational. And if it was a few patches ago, these two abilities would be on here. The meta we're in right now is getting more and more passive, especially on zones, with a lot more of a focus on staying alive. And the less things are dying, the less these are going to be helpful for you. They're fine on specific weapons. Like, if you're running a try, you definitely want these. But it depends on what exactly you're running, so it's already only good on a few weapons. But as more and more playstyles become don't feed or don't die a lot, these abilities get worse. So that's why they're in Situational and not good. Ninja Squid, very similar thing. Ninja Squid is really nice in some specific situations, but for staying alive, mobility can be really, really important. So we're starting to see a trend towards more fast builds and less stealthy builds. You don't really want to spend a ton of time sharking around, again, with meta shifts right now. And especially with missiles, in this patch, are becoming way more common. And missiles are probably the biggest counter to Ninja Squid out there, because you just cannot hide if you get missiled. So I think the rise of missiles and the less aggro plays that are happening, Ninja Squid is going to just become a little bit worse, a little bit worse. And on top of that, if you run Ninja, you need some swim speed on your build or you're going to be slow. So it's another very situational thing to run. Ink Savers, this kind of depends on the weapon you use. Like, for some weapons, it's fairly useful, like Explode, Dynamo, Brella. If you run a bomb weapon, Sub-Saver is useful, and Ink Recovery is kind of in the middle. The main reason these are in Situational is because most of the time, if you really want savers, just use this, and you'll be fine. So I don't think it's something that you necessarily need. It's just okay. Like, it's useful for a few weapons, but for most of them, you're just going to slap on LDE and you'll probably be fine. Like, you don't really need it that much. Run speed up, it's good if you play Splatlings. It's good if you play Brella. It's good if you play Zap. That's about it. Maybe some great maps, but there's nothing like Hammerhead Bridge in this game. And run speed doesn't stack super well on most weapons, so I don't think it's that useful overall. Like, it's very weapon specific. Like, on some weapons, you definitely want it, but overall, it's just not really that useful. Special Saver. 0.1 Special Saver is really useful, but again, we're in a meta where staying alive is really important, and the less people are dying, the less this is useful. Like, this does not have the same value that one of these three subs do. These help you all the time. This only helps you if you're dying. So I consider Special Saver a good bit worse. And additionally, you really just run it for the 1 or 2 subs. Like, stacking a lot of Special Saver takes up too much gear. So I don't think it's that useful in the current meta. But it's another one where, in fact, I'll probably put it with it, like QR and Comeback, if dying and more aggro playstyles become better, these will definitely move up. But as of right now, this is where I place them. Alright, and now we get into the mostly useless tier. Drop Roller. Gonna be honest, Drop Roller fans, bombs will kill your landing every time. There's no real reason to use it over stealth, unless if you use an inkjet weapon, because it can help your landing. But even then, there's so many bombs right now that you're just gonna get bombed on your landing. Like, someone's just gonna throw a suction, and it doesn't matter how you roll, because you're just gonna die anyway. The only other real perk it provides is like a bit of swim, run, and ink saver and ink res after you roll. But that's not worth it. You either have a roll that will die to bombs or some well-aimed shots, or you have something that can hide your marker from a reasonable distance. It's just worse. Like, Stealth Jump is just better in almost every situation. Like, I'd say Octobrush and L3D are the main weapons you run Drop Roller. Everything else, just play Stealth. Respawn Punisher. It's good for chargers. That's about it. Like, that's really it. It's just chargers. Like, leaders like to run it because they don't die a lot, I guess. Like, it's okay. but it's not great. Leader is common and leader runs it, so I'm putting it mostly useless because there's a few weapons where you actually do want to run it. That's really about it. Like, it's not that useful. Respawn Punisher hurts you way more than it hurts people you respawn punish, so you barely have to die in order to get value from it. I'm gonna move this up. Subpower is actually pretty useful for a few bombs, and it's good for beacons. It's really useful for Splash if you're playing more supportively. It's still nice for stuff like Junior. Maybe Zap and Shock can run it a little bit. And it's nice for beacon weapons, so yeah, I'll move it up. It's fine, so why not? It's up there. Thermalink. If you play Blob, or maybe Heavy, but probably not. Really, if you play Blob, that ability is pretty good. It's nice for some recon, so it has some uses, but the main weapon classes it would be good on, blasters, machine, Explo, it doesn't work unless you hit directs. So, yeah, that's just sad. Lastly is Haunt. The only reason Haunt is on this list is because it provides a respawn punisher effect if you kill the person you haunt. That's it. So it's like situational and slayers, but not as good as those abilities. You can maybe run it if you're trying to, like, screw over an NZAP player, maybe? That's about it, though. So, I mean, it's fine. Special power-up, trash. What specials use this? Genuine question. What do you run on this? It's terrible on Inkstorm. It's terrible on... Bubbles. Never mind. Yeah, I knew I was forgetting something. Never mind. Okay, special power. Here. The only reason it's not in trash is because Bubble Blower. That's it. It's not good on anything else. Okay on Stingray. It's okay on Armor. It's horrible on Storm. It's horrible on Bomb Rush. It's horrible on Splashdown. It's horrible on Baller. Booyah Bomb, it horrible, horrible, horrible. Most of the effects it gives don't stack well and are terrible. They're great on Bubbles, so it's mostly useless. Like, special power-up on Bubbles? Here. Special power-up on everything else? Here. So overall, I'm putting it here. The only reason it's non-trash is because Bubble Blower exists. Tenacity is outclassed by way more things than people think. Savers will help you build specials faster. Sub-power bombs will help you build specials faster. Charge-up will help you build specials faster. Last-ditch effort, which directly competes with this on a main ability, will help you build special faster, unless if you have a sub that doesn't paint. And even then, it'll help your main weapon paint. Tenacity doesn't stack well, unless if your whole team is dead. And again, we are in a meta where you don't die. So what's the point? If people are dying enough for Tenacity to be useful, they're playing wrong. Yeah, Sydra's like the only weapon that can maybe benefit from it. That's it. And even then, there's honestly better things to run. Like, the only situation it has is if you're in solo queue and you're playing with people who feed. That's it. In any competitive or higher X environment, it's worthless. Opening Gambit. Stop running this. I'm sorry. It's fun. I will admit, this ability is so fun to run into middle first, get kills, and speed around the map. But guess what? The second you play a competent team and they're like, oh, they have opening Gambit, we're just gonna not approach you for the first 30 seconds, paint the objective or hold mid control. If you run in, you're gonna die. If you don't run in, congratulations. Within the first 30 seconds, or 1/10 of the match, you've officially thrown away a main ability slot. And again, this is a main ability slot that could be last-ditch efforts. Anything that has to compete with this ability is automatically a tier lower because you're running it over this. Like, it's fun, but it's not good. Like, any competent team will know how to play around it. Even competent solo players will know how to play around it. You die once in the opening and it is useless. Ability Doubler is the simplest thing to explain ever. A main ability is worth 10 ability points. Sub-abilities are worth 3. So on a normal piece of gear, you have 19 ability points. On any gear with this, you have 18. You literally get less of an ability buff by running this. Its only use is if you need more than 9 utility subs, which maybe, but like, I don't think you're gonna need more than 9 utility subs in 99.9% of situations. So that's the list. Abilities are way more important than people think, and I hope people pay attention to what they run, because some of this stuff is so useful, like running utility subs, running LDE, running MPU on specific weapons, swim speed, stealth jump on slayers, object shredder on weapons that don't deal 30 plus damage. So important. Abilities matter a lot, so please think a lot about what you run, because I promise it matters a lot. That'll be all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching.